You want to hear a fun story?
Yes,
So
please.
the hardest part of this, I was like a little kid, so excited, right? I'm doing this for personal reasons. I love it. I love when people get better. And then I found imaging. And then my colleagues started to hate me. And I'm like, well, why is that? It's like, you're not supposed to image people. I'm like, I'm supposed to guess? And it's like, it's not what we do. This is how we practice. And I'm like, well, I don't know about you, but that's not how I do it. And I ended up in a war with my colleagues. And I've been called every bad thing, from a charlatan to taking advantage of mentally ill people to, just horrifying. And for the first couple of years, I was completely freaked out by it. I was anxious. I couldn't sleep. I knew I was doing the right thing, right? When you know that you're doing the right thing. And then I got a call from my sister-in-law, Sherry, that said my 9-year-old nephew, Andrew, who happens to be my godson, attacked a little girl on the baseball field that day. Left for like no reason. And I'm like, what? And she said, Danny, he's different. He's mean. He doesn't smile anymore. I went into his room today and I found 2 pictures he had drawn. One of them, he's hanging from a tree. The other picture, he's shooting other children. So if you really think about it, Andrew is Columbine or Parkland, Florida, or Sandy Hook waiting to happen. And I'm like, I want to see him tomorrow. And they lived 8 hours from where I lived. And when I saw him the next day, I'm like, buddy, what's going on? He said, Uncle Danny, I don't know. I'm mad all the time. I was like, is anybody hurting you? No. Is anybody teasing you? He said, no. Is anybody touching you in places they shouldn't be touching you? No. And 999 child psychiatrists out of 1,000 would have medicated him and put him in therapy. I needed to see his brain. And I held his hand while he held his teddy bear. And he got scanned. And when the scan came up on the computer screen, he was missing his left temporal lobe. It was the first time I had seen that. I've seen it 100 times since. He had a cyst the size of a golf ball occupying the space of his temporal lobe. And I told his pediatrician, I said, you find someone to take that out. And he called 3 neurologists. All of them said they wouldn't touch it. They didn't think it had anything to do with his symptoms. And I knew they were wrong. And so I called the pediatric neurosurgery department at UCLA, Dr. Jorge Lazarev, who's the chief. And he said, Dr. Raymond, when these cysts are symptomatic, we drain them. Obviously, he's symptomatic. And when they did the surgery, I got 2 calls, one from his mother, who said the surgery went really well. And when Andrew woke up, he smiled at her. She said, Danny Henn smiled at me. The second call was from Dr. Lazarev, who said, oh my God, Dr. Raymond, that cyst was so aggressive, had put so much pressure on his brain, actually thinned the bone over his temporal lobe. He said if he would have been hit in the head with a basketball, it would have killed him instantly. Either way, within 6 months, he would have been dead. And that's the moment. I didn't care if you liked me, and I went to war. If you don't look, you don't know. Stop lying about it. And in 2005, 2020 came and interviewed me because my work is controversial. And they lied. They said, we want to talk to you about your work on childhood bipolar disorder. Well, they really were trying to get me. And they start the interview with a doctor from Columbia, Brad Peterson, who's a child psychiatrist and an imaging researcher, says you should be arrested for your work. And I remember I'm like, okay, this isn't going to be the interview I thought it was going to be. And I remember being on the speech team in college, and my speech coach said, when you don't know what to say, smile, take a breath, it'll come to you. And I looked at Jim Avia, the journalist, and I said, that's so interesting. I said, last week someone told me I should win a Nobel Prize. This week you're telling me I should be arrested. Sort of keeps me balanced.
It's humbling.
And at the end of the interview, he takes his microphone off, throws it on the ground, looks at the producer and goes, you lied to me. This guy's the real deal. And just last month, Brad Peterson, the guy that said I should be arrested, he and I have a paper that just came out in Translational Psychiatry about spectrum depression. Wow. And so I love how it's coming around.
Talk about prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. Wow.
That's one of my favorite stories with the cyst. I mean, I can't believe that was affecting his brain so much that he was having those thoughts.
I can't imagine.
Well, and so it teaches us that people who do bad things might have a bad brain.
That's right. Of course.
And so it decreases judgment, increases empathy, and increases effectiveness, right? It's easy to call people bad. It's harder to go, why, and can we fix it?